The woman pounding furiously on my newly installed front door wore a name tag proclaiming President, Willowcrest HOA, and a facial expression that suggested she believed she had single-handedly discovered the concept of boundary lines. I cracked the door open about halfway. In one hand, I still gripped a screwdriver. In the other, I balanced several partially assembled pieces of flat-pack furniture. Standing on my porch was Beverly Trent immaculate polo shirt, clipboard in hand, and a thick 3-page document that she thrust aggressively toward my chest. Per Section 3.1 of the Willowcrest Covenants, she barked, "You are in violation and must vacate this residence immediately." I blinked at her. "I moved in yesterday." "Yes," she replied sharply. Illegally, I looked over her shoulder toward the end of my driveway. The brand new street sign there plainly read, Cedar Ridge Lane, Unincorporated County. Directly behind Beverly, the pristine paradise of Willowcrest terminated at a decorative brick monument bearing an elegant, "Thank you for visiting our community" sign. My house sat on the opposite side of that marker. "You do realize this property isn't part of your HOA, correct?" I asked. "That monument is literally the boundary line." Beverly's nostrils flared wide. "When you departed Willowcrest, you effectively signed a non-compete agreement with our aesthetic standards. This lot is directly adjacent. You are polluting our sightlines. The board has voted. You must leave." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I laughed outright. "That is not remotely how any of this works." Beverly leaned forward, her gaze icy. "We'll see what the county says once we inform them of your dangerous, unpermitted building activity." I carefully set the screwdriver down, fished my phone from my pocket, and scrolled to a contact saved as Jules County Building Inspector aka Voice of Reason. "Funny you should mention the county," I said. "You're about to meet my good friend there." Before all of this drama, I had been the ideal HOA resident. A quiet early 30s software engineer with a steady job. I always kept my lawn neat, never parked on the street, and generally stayed out of trouble, the kind of neighbor and HOA newsletter might spotlight as an exemplary citizen if I ever bothered to fill out their questionnaire. On preferred mulch varieties, I had purchased my first home in Willowcrest Meadows, a sprawling planned community just outside Birch Ridge that regulated everything from mailbox dimensions to permissible patio chair hues. For 3 solid years, it suited me fine. I coded, I grilled, I kept to myself. And then I crossed paths with Beverly Trent, president of the Willowcrest HOA. Our initial encounter occurred when she appeared at my door clutching a printed photograph of my driveway. "You cannot display a red tool chest where it's visible from the street," she declared. "It's industrial." I relocated it to the garage. Next came a citation for my non-regulation welcome mat. It contains text, "Marcus," an email regarding my Halloween pumpkins. 3 is the maximum allowed. You have 5. A formal letter because my recycling bin lid had blown slightly ajar on a gusty collection morning. The final straw arrived when Beverly taped a courtesy reminder directly to my truck's windshield during a rainstorm because I had parked it a few inches too close to my own mailbox. That's when I dug into my closing paperwork. It turned out the lot I owned wasn't the only available option. Immediately beyond the Willowcrest subdivision on the far side of that brick, "Thank you for visiting" monument lay a narrow strip of land that had never been annexed into the HOA. It was illegal no man's land. The county plat map confirmed it clearly, a small pocket of liberty. 2 months later, fueled by a late-night online search and one exceptionally motivated realtor, I sold my Willowcrest house and purchased a newly constructed home on that unincorporated parcel. Same scenic views, same school zone, zero HOA oversight. When the moving truck rumbled past the Willowcrest entrance monument and continued straight instead of turning in, Beverly happened to be out walking her dog. She observed my couch and television glide by with the look of a queen witnessing a prized vassal flee to a rival kingdom. She composed herself swiftly. By the time I had my bed frame put together, she had apparently resolved that if she couldn't keep me inside the HOA, she would simply expand the HOA's reach to include me. The campaign began with small-scale theatrics. On my second day, I discovered a Willow Crest welcome packet left on my porch, complete with the covenants booklet, due schedule, and a handwritten note. As an adjacent property owner, you are expected to uphold Willow Crest standards. President Trent. I dropped it straight into recycling. The following morning brought another envelope. Notice of non-compliance. Violation, unauthorized exterior paint color. Please submit a color sample for approval or repaint the front door willow white within 14 days. I examined my door. It was a completely neutral slate gray. I returned the notice by mail with my own sticky note. Not in your HOA. Kindly stop leaving litter on my porch. This did not produce the calming outcome I had anticipated. Within a week, Beverly began walking her dog precisely along the property boundary twice daily, stopping to scowl at my grass. Neighbors reported seeing her snapping photos of my backyard fence from the community trail. The Willow Crest newsletter soon featured a paragraph decrying nearby properties that declined to maintain community standards, illustrated with a zoomed-in image of my yet-to-be-finished deck. Then the anonymous complaints started rolling in. First, a tip to the county about unsafe construction at my address. Mid-afternoon one day, Jules Henshaw, the county building inspector, arrived. Received a report of unpermitted structural modifications, Jules said, checking her tablet. Mind if I inspect? I directed her to the permits displayed in a protective sleeve inside my garage. She reviewed them, chuckled, and shook her head. Yeah, she said. Figured as much. Some people think just outside the gates still means still under our rules. We toured the site together. Everything was by the book. Jules approved it and departed with a friendly wave. 2 days later, animal control pulled up. Sir, we have a report of a vicious dog that barks incessantly at this address. I glanced at my golden retriever, Waffles, who was sprawled upside down asleep. A chew toy balanced on his snout like a blindfold. Seriously? I asked. The officer observed Waffles snoring peacefully. Yeah, he muttered. We're good here. Over the following month, I assembled a full bingo card of fabricated concerns. A zoning complaint about excessive vehicles on the property I own too. A noise violation for loud mechanical activity late at night. I ran the dishwasher at p.m. A junk complaint regarding debris in the yard. It was lumber for an approved shed. Each time, municipal or county personnel arrived, assessed the situation, and dismissed the case. Each time, Beverly observed from the Willow Crest side of the line, arms crossed, mouth pinched. The tipping point arrived when I erected a completely code-compliant, modest 6-foot privacy fence along my rear property line. One morning stepped outside to find Beverly stationed at the boundary, glaring at it as though it were evidence in a felony trial. That fence is not on our approved materials list, she shouted across the yard. Good thing, I called back. Because neither am I on your approved residence list. Her eyes narrowed to slits. You are ruining the consistent character of this neighborhood. I don't live in your neighborhood, I reminded her. We've established this. She pointed sharply at my house. As far as I'm concerned, you do. And I will not tolerate this loophole. Residents bordering Willow Crest. 3 days later, the bogus eviction notice appeared taped to my door, and the game ceased being merely petty. The escalation turned outright unlawful. At first sight, the vacate notice appeared convincingly official. Bold, capitalized headings, the Willow Crest emblem prominently displayed at the top, and an abundance of legalese terminology. You are hereby ordered to vacate the premises within 72 hours. Unsafe occupancy. Failure to comply may result in law enforcement intervention. At the bottom, Beverly had signed with an elaborate flourish, appending the phrases "by order of the board" and "in cooperation with county code enforcement." I snapped a photo of the document, followed by another of the street sign at the end of my driveway, which bore no mention of Willow Crest whatsoever. Then I forwarded both images to Jules, the county building inspector, with the message, "Hey, does your office now issue handwritten eviction notices, or is Willow Crest just role-playing as the county?" Jules phoned me back in less than 60 seconds. "Please tell me this is some kind of prank," she said. "I wish it were," I answered. A brief pause. "Okay," Jules replied, her voice hardening. First, nobody except a court can issue a legitimate eviction notice. Second, she just dragged my department into this as if we endorsed her little crusade. That's a hard no. That's exactly what I figured, I said. So what happens next? Now, Jules stated firmly, we handle it for what it actually is, impersonation of an official process. I'm bringing in my supervisor and code enforcement. Keep that document, don't discard it, and avoid any further contact with her if possible. I ended the call, placed the notice on my kitchen counter like evidence, and resumed putting together my bookshelves. I didn't have to wait very long. That same afternoon, a patrol car cruised slowly past my driveway, then reversed and pulled in. The officer emerged, his hand resting lightly on his duty belt. Afternoon. Why? Ooh, Marcus. Yeah, I replied, acutely aware that Beverly was observing from the HOA boundary. Phone raised and clearly recording. We received a call regarding illegal occupancy and a contested eviction notice, the officer explained. Mind if I see whatever paperwork you've been served? I handed him the entire 3-page packet. The officer scanned the letterhead. His eyebrows shot upward. This is on HOA stationery. He turned the pages. And here it claims, in cooperation with county code enforcement. That's not how any of this operates. That's what the county told me as well, I said. Behind the patrol car, another vehicle arrived. A white county SUV marked code enforcement on the doors. Jules climbed out, accompanied by a man wearing a county windbreaker, who appeared utterly unfazed by whatever absurdity HOAs could invent. Hey, Marcus, Jules greeted me, then nodded to the officer. Afternoon, Dyer. Thanks for the heads up. She glanced at the notice in Officer Dyer's hand and exhaled a slow whistle. Oh, Beverly, she muttered. You actually went and did it this time. The man in the windbreaker extended his hand toward me. Tom, from the county attorney's office. We'd like a word with the person who signed this document. I tilted my head toward the Willowcrest side, where Beverly had edged noticeably closer, lingering right at the property line. Speak of the devil, I said. The three of them, Officer Dyer, Jules, and Tom, approached the invisible demarcation where Willowcrest's jurisdiction and reality resumed. Beverly advanced as if hosting a charity gala. Officers, thank goodness you're here, she began. We have a grave situation with a non-compliant individual jeopardizing our entire community. Tom raised the papers. You authored and delivered this document? Of course, she replied smoothly. As HOA president, I have a duty to uphold occupancy standards in and around Willowcrest. His residence directly impacts our property values. In and around, Jules echoed quietly. Incredulous. Tom's tone remained courteous, but his gaze turned steely. Just to confirm, you do understand that this property lies outside Willowcrest boundaries. It is unincorporated county territory. Beverly flicked her hand dismissively. Adjacent parcels are effectively part of the neighborhood. That sign is purely decorative. Jules nearly choked on the absurdity. Tom pressed on. And you understand that only a judicial court can order an eviction, and only a sworn officer or authorized official can serve one. Beverly's smile grew strained. We possess extensive enforcement authority. It's outlined in our covenants. No, Tom corrected calmly. You possess extensive authority over your dues-paying members on land governed by those covenants. That authority does not extend to Mr. Hall or his lots. She folded her arms defiantly. Well, we'll see what our board's legal counsel has to say about this. Tom's expression remained unchanged. Funny you should bring up attorneys, because I am the county's, and what I'm looking at is a document on your HOA letterhead that falsely asserts collaboration with county code enforcement, directs a lawful homeowner to abandon his property, and suggests police support that does not exist. Officer Dyer interjected. Which is a significant issue, ma'am. That constitutes misrepresentation of governmental authority and dispatching us here to enforce a fabricated eviction you created yourself. That's abuse of emergency services. Beverly's poise began to fracture. I was merely fulfilling my responsibilities. That house is an eyesore. Just look at that fence, it doesn't coordinate. Jules, who had been quietly fuming, finally spoke up. Your responsibilities do not include slapping my department's name on your personal vendetta. We handle real safety violations, not your decorative preferences." Tom turned a page on his clipboard. "We've also reviewed the recent complaint logs associated with this address. Let's see 9 separate calls or anonymous submissions in recent weeks. Every single one is baseless." "They were not baseless," Beverly retorted sharply. "That dog barked at me once," I added, "when you stepped onto my flowerbed to photograph my deck." Officer Dyer turned to me. "She entered your property?" "Twice," I confirmed. "I have it recorded on my security cameras." Dyer glanced back at Beverly. "All right. So now we're adding trespassing to the list." Beverly's pitch rose. "This is intimidation. You're all conspiring against a dedicated volunteer. I sacrifice my time to preserve the beauty of this community." Tom's voice stayed even. "You exploited your volunteer role to impersonate county officials and attempt to displace someone from a legally occupied residence. That isn't community service. That's abuse of power." He snapped his folder shut with quiet authority. "Here's what's going to happen next," Tom declared. "You will immediately cease all contact with Mr. Hall. No more notices, no letters, no claims about adjacent jurisdiction. You will stop incorporating county or law enforcement phrasing into any HOA documents, effective now. Additionally, you will be receiving an official letter from my office outlining the limits of your actual authority." Officer Dyer chimed in. "And if we receive even one more fabricated emergency call tied to this address, I will personally file charges for false reporting. Do we understand each other?" For the first time since I had known her, Beverly had no retort. She simply stood there, mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Behind her, 2 Willow Crest residents who had drifted over to spectate abruptly found the sky fascinating. One was already typing rapidly on his phone. I watched the power dynamic flip the way you watch a seesaw when the heavier child finally slides onto the opposite side. Beverly, undisputed monarch of the cul-de-sac, had just discovered the precise border of her domain. Right at that brick monument, the true entertainment unfolded at the next Willow Crest HOA meeting. I wasn't present, I no longer lived there, but 3 separate neighbors forwarded me video clips. The session began with Beverly attempting damage control. "There has been an unfortunate misunderstanding with the county," she announced, her voice strained. "They overreacted to a standard compliance notification sent to the adjacent property, evidently." Tom had reviewed the published agenda, because midway through her remarks, he entered the clubhouse, county badge visible on his belt, and claimed a seat in the front row. The room fell into stunned silence. Beverly's practiced smile solidified into something brittle. "Tom Garcia," he introduced himself calmly. "County attorney. Since my office appears on your agenda under legal update, I figured I'd save everyone some time." He rose, retrieved a slim folder from his briefcase, and explained in plain terms exactly what Beverly had done: shoot a counterfeit eviction notice, falsely implied county and police endorsement, submitted numerous baseless complaints and emergency dispatches, and trespassed onto my property to photograph my fence. He kept it factual. Embellishment wasn't necessary. "We are not pursuing criminal charges at this juncture," he continued. "However, we have issued a formal warning. Any additional impersonation of county officials or harassment directed at residents on neighboring properties will be regarded as deliberate misconduct." A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. One man raised his hand. "Are you telling us our HOA president could have exposed the association to a lawsuit?" Tom nodded. "Correct. Had Mr. Hall elected to file civil claims, both the association and any board members who authorized her actions could have been defendants. The county will not cover liabilities for conduct you were explicitly cautioned against." Someone in the back blurted, "You what?" loud enough to bounce off the walls. Another hand shot up. "Did the board actually vote to approve this eviction notice?" Silence. Every head swiveled toward Beverly. She swallowed hard. "The board delegated authority to me to act in their interest." A board member named Larry cleared his throat, survival instinct kicking in. "We authorized you to send a letter, Bev, not whatever that document was." Tom arched an eyebrow. So the board never formally voted to evict a non-member from property outside your governance? Larry shook his head vigorously. Absolutely not. Phones emerged openly now. Residents recorded without pretense. A woman near the front stood. My husband serves on that board. Why are we only learning about this tonight? You've been spending our dues on your private vendetta. Beverly bristled. It is not personal. He is devaluing our homes. That fence, his fence, is actually nicer than half the ones inside the community, someone shouted from the middle rows. Another voice chimed in. He moved out because you tormented him over pumpkins, BEV. It snowballed rapidly. Within 10 minutes, the meeting devolved into open criticism. One resident demanded access to Beverly's correspondence about me. Another questioned how much association money had gone toward legal consultations that apparently never consulted actual attorneys. A third highlighted how 9 frivolous complaints had landed the entire HOA on the county's unfavorable watch list. Finally, a homeowner in a faded polo shirt, clearly fed up, approached the microphone. I moved to remove Beverly Trent as HOA president, effective immediately, for abuse of authority, jeopardizing the association financially, and making the rest of us look ridiculous. The room exploded with seconds from at least 5 corners. They held a vote. It wasn't even competitive. On the video, you could see the exact moment Beverly realized she was truly losing control, not symbolically, but literally. Her engraved gavel bearing her name was collected and passed to Larry, who appeared stunned to find himself abruptly crowned in the midst of a palace revolt. Tom slid a single sheet across the table toward the rattled board. This is a recommended policy amendment, he explained. It explicitly states that Willow Crest exercises no jurisdiction over adjacent properties, mandates full board approval before any communication with non-members, and forbids the use of county terminology or insignia on association documents. Sign it, and we can treat this incident as resolved. They signed. Beverly did not. She remained standing, eyes burning, as the miniature empire she had ruled contracted back to its mundane legal boundaries. As attendees exited afterward, the faded polo man was overheard remarking, all this drama because she couldn't accept that one guy moved a single lot beyond the gates. Unreal. The clip closed with someone muttering, calling a realtor tomorrow. I want in on that Freedom Street. Following her ouster, the new board voted to prohibit Beverly from holding any officer position for the next 10 years and mandated that all future officers complete an online course covering fiduciary responsibility and prevention of authority abuse. The county's official warning was placed in her permanent record. Any subsequent attempt involving forged government documents would bypass warnings entirely. Beverly remained rooted at the podium, face flushing crimson as the consequences settled. 10 years, she whispered, staring at the board members who had just turned against her. You cannot do this to me, but they already had. The gavel she had wielded for years to dictate every trivial aspect of neighborhood life now rested in another's grasp. Her dominion was finished, ended not by a narrow margin or clever politics, but by her own relentless overreach and refusal to accept that some things were simply never hers to control.